Let's now talk about some important assumptions of semantics. Assumptions may be defined as some theories or philosophical talk which provides a basis for any discipline of knowledge. Semantics also has its own assumptions like other disciplines. These assumptions may be seen as those ideas which provide basis for various theories which include today's semantics. Among these theories, the popular ones are related to the difference between sense and reference, between sentences, utterances, and proposition, and between non-literal and literal meanings. We also will talk about the difference between semantics and pragmatics. Since these are the ideas which provide basis for contemporary semantics knowledge, we have already talked about some of these ideas in our previous modules. So there would be a slight revision of those ideas in today's lecture also. Let's begin with reference and sense. These two terms emerge from Fred's book on sense and reference. And these are very important concepts because these two terms provide us to different aspects of the meaning. Reference leads us to think about the relationship between the words we utter and the world of experience in which we live in. How our words relate to the experience, what we do in the world, that relationship is called reference. It also looks on to the occasions of utterance, on which occasion we say what, that has a certain meaning. So such meanings are actually encapsulated or included within the frame of reference. Palmer defines reference as the relationship between linguistic elements and the non-linguistic world of experience. How we use the words in the real world, that is how we derive meanings based on reference. Said also talks about reference in the similar terms, and he says that reference is the relationship by which language looks onto the world, usually called reference. So how language looks onto the world, there might be certain words fixed for certain occasions, certain things or names, but we sometimes change those because of certain associations, because of certain relevance or certain change of context. So how we change it and what we change is actually based on the reference of that situation or occurrence. Thus, reference can be concluded as the meaning of a word in a language that exists in the world. It may roughly or summarily be defined as the meaning of a piece of language in the real world. Meanings of the language also exist in the language. We find that in dictionary. But how those meanings are manipulated or exploited in the real world to convey certain specific meanings or situational meanings, that is called reference. For example, if I say I am an MA student, as you people are, I here refers to a certain person, let's say X, and X is a person who lives in the real world. He's not the one who lives in language only. He's the one who lives in the real world, and I may mean different entities or persons, whosoever speaks it. Similarly, if we look at the example, the door is in this classroom is white. Door refers to a thing which separates the room from the corridor outside. So door may be a flat surface there. So we use these words in different meaning. We use the word door, door of my heart, door of my kitchen, etc. So in different situations, the word door can be used in different references. Sense, as Alan describes it, is the decontextualized meaning. It's not based on or it's not restricted to a certain situation. or a context. Rather, it is the meaning which exists in the language, and this is above any context. And it relates to a complex system of relationship which exists between the various elements of a language, and sense relies heavily on the linguistic relationships between the words of a language. That's why it is called intralinguistic relationships. And to say semantic links between various elements within the vocabulary system is an aspect of their sense or meaning. I mean, how words define each other, that is their sense meaning. It can be concluded that sense exists in the word. It's a word-to-word relationship, whereas references exist in the world. That's how words are manipulated in the real world situation. It may be an imaginary situation, but that's the real world situation, how people think or imagine things. Let's have an example. A dog can be defined as a mammal who occur in various breeds, showing great size, color, and form. And similarly, a desk can be defined as a piece of furniture who has a flat surface and is used for reading and writing. These are the sense meaning of these words. Both sense and reference are important to the meaning making process, because in most of the situations we will not be able to make meaning without utilizing both of these elements of the meaning. In short, the meaning of linguistic expression derives from two major sources. Number one, the world they describe, the real world, the context, and the language they are part of. Language itself provides meaning of various words, and the typical example of such meaning is those meanings were found in the dictionary. For example, the meaning of chair is partially defined by what it is and partly defined by other pieces of furniture like stool who exist in the same context, and we understand chair by discriminating it or distinguishing it from the stool. Similarly, red is partially defined by other terms like brown, yellow, and orange. So we get meanings both from the book and from the context. In the end, I'll just present the example of two words, the English word sheep and French word mutton. English word sheep defines the animal, and the French word mutton can be used both for the animal and for the mutton and the meat we get from that animal. So in some situations they can be used in the same sense, but in other situations or contexts they may be used differently. So sense and reference both help us to understand these differences in the meaning.